Ah, cheers, everyone. That was a rum and coke. Do you like my little jar? Happy festivities, and I wish you a great 2022 with whoever you celebrate with, whatever you celebrate, and with whoever you love. This is my What's Happening for 2022 video. It's going to be split into sections because I need to go through some personal stuff first before I hit all of the different things that I do. Depending on where you're watching this, either on Higher Plane Music, Higher Plane Games, YouTube, I Love Disaster Movies, Bandcamp, Patreon, wherever else I am, you're looking at one part of the Higher Plane network. I run loads of different websites and projects all together. It's my entire life outside of work, of family and relationships and friends. So I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world, apart from perhaps having it as a full-time job that I could dedicate my day to, not my night to. But yeah, it's independent. Apart from YouTube ad revenue, everything is donations and Patreon support. So if it's of interest and you like supporting independent stuff, patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Have a look at what I do. Now, before I dive in, firstly, a huge thank you to anyone that does read, watch, listen, take part, whatever, in all of the content that I produce. It's really appreciated. And in 2021, throughout a lot of the projects, they had their best year ever. High Plane Music crossed the 100,000 views threshold. Over 1,000 on the email list who don't contribute to those views, they just get it in an email form. I Love Disaster Movies had its biggest view count ever. The High Plane Games website had its biggest view count ever. We had the most sales on Sitorimon products for music releases, and I launched my PR stuff. Also, I started doing some freelance writing for some other websites, which has been helpful too. So it's largely been a great year. However, it's been marred with some personal stuff, which has meant that I've been MIA for certain periods of the year. And I'd just like to explain why, and why it's going to impact on my 2022 stuff, and why it's got this huge, this is all caveated because going on. If you're not interested in my personal stuff, I'll put timestamps down so you can skip. So at the beginning of this year, I caught what I think was COVID because I had both positive and negative tests, which was frustrating. I didn't really feel like I had a cold necessarily. I had very, very poor breathing, for which I've never really fully recovered from. And I really have to focus on breathing and doing huge deep breaths to try and open up my lungs slowly over time. Reminds me very much of when I had really severe asthma as a kid, just all day, every day. But the main thing was just extreme exhaustion, tiredness, and the loss of control of my limbs and movements. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that with my hands. I couldn't move my hands up and down. And some days I lost control of my legs and they were just jelly and I couldn't stand up. And I'd be like army crawling to the kitchen. Funny to think of it now. Tragic at the time. Thankfully, much, much better. Still not 100% though. And this is like 12 months on. So definitely whatever long COVID is, assuming that I've got long COVID, again, this is all assumptions here. It's a process, it's taking time, but it is getting better. The second more dramatic reason for me personally, and it was chipping away across all of the year, but kind of reached its head in September. Both my parents are really quite seriously unwell. Both were looking at cancer diagnoses. Thankfully, my mum is not got cancer, which is fantastic. What she does have, though, is some stuff that requires some quite big surgery that will take place, we assume, next year, depending on how COVID works out. Sadly, though, my dad does have cancer, and it's colon cancer. And whilst it's of the good kind, I guess, that is trying desperately to put positive spins on it, it's not broke the colon wall, essentially, which means it's all in one place, which means that you can potentially remove it. And then I think what they do is they kind of pull your colon down and round and try and connect it. They've kind of said that it's unlikely that they'll be able to do that. That's like the best scenario. Otherwise, you have to have like the bag for life, as I call it, the colostomy on the side, of which is a complete change of lifestyle and stuff in itself. The main problem with this, though, is that my dad has an awful lot of underlying health issues. So it means that whatever decision we take is very life-threatening. So there's more chance of him not waking up from things than waking up from things if we go into an operation point of view. But if you ignore the operation entirely, you're essentially saying, I'm not getting cancer treatment and it's a death sentence. And what they're saying is that even like the chemo or radiotherapy, because he's quite frail, especially at the moment, because he's got quite a lot of other health issues going on at the same time. Essentially, the treatment could be worse than just letting you go, even though the treatment could be done early on. It's a real head fuck. So basically, the best way I can describe it is that cancer eats away at you inside and becomes all consuming. But when you're dealing with it, either as the person with cancer or immediate family, close loved ones, all of that, it eats away in your brain as well, and it becomes quite all consuming. And my entire day is sitting there being like, well, time is life. Time is life. Trying to like push through decisions, trying to be as level-headed as possible in what feels like a real impossible decision to make. And it's very personal to people as well. So all of that was going on across September through to still now, which means that I've had to either park putting out content because after doing work in which all of this, I was given a temporary promotion and a huge piece of work to look after. I work in central government, and as you can imagine, with all of that kicking off where you're trying to put things in place for vulnerable people, it's a huge piece of work that I'm involved in, and I don't take it lightly, especially when you're like very anti what the current government is. Probably gets me sacked. Never mind. Anyway, so I want to make sure that people have the right support in place so that things work and matter. Very passionate about all of that, which is probably what gets me into trouble. But anyway, with all of that going on all at the same time, it all kind of culminates together. So it means that I have to drop my usual 10 posts a week on Higher Play Music. It means that games I can't review so quickly, or I have to choose, or am choosing things that suit the lifestyle of being able to pick up and play like an hour and a half of something at 3 a.m. so that I can get that review out, because I can't pick a chunky game because I just don't have the time and resource to commit to it at the moment. Now, a lot of people kind of go, oh, it's okay, family and friends and all of that first. But for me, this is also around my own mental well-being and happiness and thought, because this is my passion, this is my love, I love doing all of this. So if I can't get round to doing it, that has a negative impact on me, probably more than being absolutely knackered doing all of this stuff at like midnight through to 3 and 4 in the morning and then up at 7 for work. So yeah, I just got to be careful I don't burn a candle at both ends. The big thing with all of this though is that with Omicron coming in, the decision that we've gone for surgeries for both my mum and my dad, and trying to make sure that they weren't both in at the same time, because my dad will be ICU for 2 months at least, and then my mum will be in and out of hospital over probably like a couple of weeks, we think. So it's making sure that it didn't all happen together, and now Omicron's come in, all of it is just scrapped. And it's very difficult to not take it personally and feel like you're a second-rate citizen because your disease doesn't directly impact the economy and therefore you're treated as a second-rate citizen. So it takes a lot to not get very, very angry and bitter, particularly when in 2020 I lost a few people because of their cancer treatments being cancelled, essentially. Admittedly, one was a stage 4 cancer patient, but she was doing exceptionally well up until the point where all of the support was withdrawn, and the speed of decline was palpable. Whereas the second person I felt was a very preventable death. I think it's the hidden cost of the pandemic. I don't want to kind of go off on a tangent and a rant, but yeah, anyway. So yeah, all of this kind of combines for me to basically say throughout 2022 there will be a period of time where I will just vamoose, or I will be like proper batch processing stuff where I'm like, do you know what, I've got a day where I can just sit and do. So you might get like nothing for like 2 weeks and then like 6 videos and 6 posts in a day, and you're like, Simon, it's just how it will work. And if I can set it up so that it's all scheduled so it spreads stuff out, obviously I will, but my brain will probably be fried throughout some of those points. But there we go. Oh, 10 minutes already. I'm so sorry. Right. Onward to the stuff. So I'll go round the board. High Plane Music had its best year ever. Over 100,000 hits on the actual website, over 1,000 on the email only subscriber list. They get their site posts through an email, so don't have to click through to read them. I just want to get back to 10 posts a week on that. That is my pure thing for that, because whatever I'm doing on High Plane Music is working. Because whilst the rest of my blog websites are going downhill, no one's coming anymore, mine's increasing, and it's increasing year on year, and that's great. So I'm happy to just keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. What I'm not sure is working is the new Mixcloud radio show. I went down Mixcloud because they give proper royalties, unlike Spotify. Evil. But the reach on Mixcloud is really tiny. So I'm going to give that throughout 2022 and invest some proper time and get more regular at the radio shows. And hopefully it can gain a small little audience. But it's a good way to dip my toe into a radio format, because I'd ideally love to have some kind of like 24-hour, 7 days a week playlist that goes out across the world. But the way how radio royalties work make that really unsustainable from a financial point of view. So that's why Mixcloud works for me. On to Higher Plane Records whilst we're related, so I'm going down the list. This was kind of a bit of a casualty in 2021 with all of the personal problems that I had. I wanted to and have kind of launched an e-label called Higher Plane Records, but it's only me that's on it in a couple of different guises, so it's not really a label. But in 2022, I do want to start bringing on other artists on so that they can get help through getting stuff onto Spotify and other channels, navigating through some PR and support with all of that. And seeing what it is that I can offer. Perhaps I can help finance some promotional videos, all of that kind of stuff, so that they actually get some tangible outcome of being a record label. And the record label gets associated with the type of music that I already promote on Higher Plane Music. A part of that is then to look at video game music and video game cover music. Now, there's tons of discontent in this kind of sphere, where some of the big players are withholding royalties, purposely not paying things, being an absolute hell station to work for, real problems. So for me, I've been looking at trying to get into that line of work for a while. This feels like a really good time to do so, but I want to build something from the ground up that's had consultation with composers in that sphere so that they get what they want in a transparent way. And so that's going to take time for me to build up. But the idea is that it's going to be called Chip-De-Bleep. It will probably have its own specific website. I've got a question mark over that, whether it should come under Higher Plane Music or be on its own. But yeah, it will be an e-label to begin with. I'm not looking at physical stuff because, again, I'm just not at that. I'm not able to outlay that kind of cost without having something already churning through to begin with. Continuing down the list as well, PR is a big thing that I launched in 2021. Had my first few customers through, which was lovely. Very, very helpful, really engaging, and quite rewarding actually as a piece of work. Really helpful. I do a couple of things. So firstly, I do like what I call the PR one pager, which is if you're sending something out to various different like press or blogs or stuff like that, you have like a PR one pager for your music release or your game release that showcases what you've got in a linguistically fun way. So yeah, cheap as chips what I offer, but it's good for the service that it provides. And then there was more of a mentoring thing, and I had a couple of customers that joined me on that for a little while as well, so they could learn what it kind of works. And the idea with all of this is that you only really use me until you're self-sufficient. You shouldn't be stuck with me month on month. Now that's a bad business model for me, but it makes sense that you don't need like ongoing support for massive periods of time. It might be just to finish off a project and then you take what you've learned forward with you to the next one, and we continue to all kind of learn and grow together. So that's the idea. I just need to kind of structure that offer a bit better in 2022. And also start to invest in some time on YouTube, creating some more free content for people to help them along the way. Potentially with an e-learning course there as well. I'm then going to move up to Higher Plane Games up on the top. So High Plane Games is one of the few things that actually didn't have its best year in 2021. It had the YouTube channel actually had quite a poor year, if I'm perfectly honest, in comparison to what I normally get. So it's about the 800,000 view mark, which is still great when I think about it. But considering I'm normally doing a 1.5 to 2 million view turnover, it's been a sharp drop. I just didn't have anything that kind of picked up and went live. Excuse me. And what did were things that I'd posted like a year or two ago. And I find this with YouTube quite often. No one really looks at anything when it goes out live or launched. And then like a year later, everyone's like, oh my God, this game. And then I get like a few thousand hits for a video then. And I'm like, okay. I don't care. But the reason why this impacts me is because YouTube is the only place where I've got ad revenue coming through. Everything else I pay to remove all of the ads away. So yeah, we'll kind of see how that goes throughout 2022. I want to continue going down my own path of my own way of doing things, even if that means that it's going to be a smaller audience. I think the content is better as a result of not trying to cater to everyone and no one at the same time. I do want to do some kind of event in 2022, whether that be in a physical place where I rent a room out and set up some consoles and we all have a good laugh together, or we do something online very similar to how like Wholesome Games works, where you get like a trailer collection and it becomes an event. I'd quite like that, particularly around maybe solo devs or something, to really promote the indie arts of stuff. I'm also looking at doing probably more stuff on camera as well, and trying to just increase the production value of some of the things that I do, rather than me just sitting here in my living room. Oh yes. And esports will become much more of a thing in 2022 as well. Yeah, because Circuit Superstars was great at the end of 2021, and I was like, yes, we need more of this. More of this. I'm then going to dive down, because it's related, into projects. Bottom right. So, I have created a fictional Parappa the Rapper 3 storyline in my head, and my 2022 project is 1 month, 1 stage song, and I'm going to create an entirely fictional Parappa the Rapper 3 soundtrack. There will be a separate video on this. Yeah, I think it will be fun. So we'll see how that goes. Also, continuing on the music front, the much vaunted Sitorimon album Modus Vivendi. I'm hoping to finally get it out. Funny enough though, I've also been writing music about all of the personal shit that's been going on throughout 2021, so that might come before Modus Vivendi. I feel like Modus Vivendi has now been going on for so many years in the background. I've just been chipping away at it. It's just become its own personal meme for me and me alone. I'll also be looking at releasing my first Vocaloid EP, a Smithy-P, and that will probably line up with the Chip-De-Bleep stuff as well. And one of the things that I didn't get around to doing properly in 2021 that I really wanted to do was to do my Choose Your Own Adventure game. Initially, this was going to be a YouTube game where you would select on different videos and click on, like, you know, the end cards at the end to choose your decision. I'm still toying with that, but from a what can you actually do perspective, I might use Twine instead, which is a fantastic tool that helps you build out Choose Your Own Adventure narrative games, and you can publish it for free afterwards. Then going up, we'll go to High Plane Feelings. High Plane Feelings was my big flop of 2021. The idea of this was that you were supposed to, well, we did, at the end of 2020, I put out messages across different social platforms saying, tell me what main word are you associating with 2021, and then I made a song a month on it. Highly experimental, really all over the place with like crazy synths, ethnic percussion, piano, soft bits. But I think because I'd marketed it initially as like this is a relaxing channel, and then like everyone's like anticipation and aggression, and it was a complete mismatch, so it just fell past the mark already. Still had great fun doing it, but just no one watched or listened. So for 2022, Higher Plane Feelings is going to return back to its actual, this was what I wanted to do originally, and it's all around sound healing. So I've got loads of weird instruments, and I've got a like a stereo-ish, like two-eared, not binaural, but it's a stereo microphone, like dictaphone type thing. It's a Tascam. And the idea of that is it then lets me move 360 degrees around you so that you can feel like you're taking part in a sound bath. I love all of this type of stuff. I love ASMR, particularly when it's like, oh, I'm a doctor and I'm clearing your ears. I find like the white noise element of it really relaxing. But I also find sound healing very relaxing as well. So that's what that channel is going to be in 2022. I also want to try and get those onto Spotify as well. I think that'd be quite interesting to see how they do. And then last but certainly not least is I love disaster movies, not I disaster love movies, as I've wrote there. That had its busiest year as well in 2021, despite me not putting an update on since August because I just didn't have the opportunity to because of all of the personal stuff. For this year in 2022, I'll be putting on new review content, but I'll just be continuing going through the backlog of all old reviews, restructuring and rewriting them back into the new format, which is like the cookie cutter way of how I address each disaster movie, so that it becomes a real compendium of every movie that's a disaster movie that's ever been out there. So proper review structure, screenshot galleries, any promotional art scanned and all of that kind of stuff. And I've been having some chats with some people to hopefully let them provide some of their memorabilia that they've collected. I appreciate some of it's like behind closed doors and I only want people to see it. But unless they're kind of using it for a like paywall perspective, which I know some movies like fan clubs definitely do, I think it's just a shame that they kind of hoard it and don't want to share it with anyone else. I'd quite like movie memorabilia to be celebrated. So yeah, that's everything, I think, in a nutshell. Oh, no. So down at the bottom, so this is very much a would be lovely if, is around High Plane Network. So all of these things that I do all kind of sit in their own little bubble and guise. But ultimately, I would love High Plane Network to start being able to produce other almost like TV show style stuff and becoming a very independent, almost like a quiet version of Netflix, called the High Plane Network, or the Quiet Network potentially. And the idea of this is that there's a specific style of TV show that I absolutely love and adore, and it's where like it's educational, but it's wholesome. And it feels family orientated and warm, but it can be like hobby based. And it's things like Bob Ross, Julia Child, Mr. Rogers, all of that kind of stuff that I just feel like is totally missing these days. And whenever I watch those shows, I feel so strangely warm and fulfilled on the inside. And that's ultimately where I want to go next as a big, huge project. But not just with me, it'll be about getting other people on board as well. So yeah, that would be a nice to have if I can get it in 2022, but I'm not pushing myself because there's an awful lot going on. So I'm so sorry that is a 23-minute rundown of my entire life. Hope you have fun. Let us know if you've got any personal goals in 2022 as well. Or if you just are happy surviving, which is just as fucking well as well, to be fair. So yeah, you guys take care. Thank you so much for taking part in anything that I do. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch you up soon with some bespoke special videos.